Chances are you've got this herb in your kitchen right now. But what if I told you that beyond seasoning your food, ancient wisdom and modern science suggest that rosemary has a really fascinating and honestly, a surprisingly complex relationship with our memory? So today, let's dive into what's known as the Rosemary Effect.
So let's just start with a simple question. What if a key to boosting your brain power was just sitting there in your spice rack? Sounds a little like folklore, right? But believe it or not, it's a question scientists are taking very, very seriously.
You see, for thousands of years, rosemary has been way more than just a seasoning. It's been this powerful symbol of remembrance, something woven deep into cultural traditions and even ancient medicine. I mean, you've got ancient Greeks wearing rosemary garlands to ace their exams, and then you have Shakespeare's Ophelia famously saying, "There's rosemary, that's for remembrance." So yeah, this herb's reputation is legit, and it's been around for a long, long time.
Okay, but a reputation no matter how old isn't the same as hard scientific proof, right? So what happens when you take all that ancient wisdom and stick it under a modern microscope? Well, researchers decided to find out for themselves if there was any real fire behind all that anecdotal smoke. All right, so the modern investigation really kicks off with this key study from the Journal of Medicinal Food. And they were smart about it. They focused on a group that's particularly vulnerable to cognitive decline, which makes them a perfect test population: the elderly.
And look, this was not some simple memory quiz. As you can see right here in this table from the study, they use this super comprehensive system to test all sorts of brain functions. Over on the left, you see the specific tasks, things like immediate word recall or simple reaction time. And then on the right, you see how those tasks map onto bigger ideas like power of attention and speed of memory. Seriously, this was a deep dive into how the brain was actually performing. And the way they set this study up, it was basically the gold standard. We're talking randomized, placebo-controlled, and double-blind. That means nobody, not the participants, not even the researchers, knew who was getting the real rosemary and who was getting the placebo. They had 28 adults, average age of 75, and they gave them different doses of dried rosemary powder, then tracked their brain performance for hours.
So the researchers were hunting for what's called a dose-response relationship. Basically, does more rosemary mean a bigger effect? And yeah, they found one, but it was the complete opposite of what you'd think.
Now, we all kind of think that, right? If a little of something is good for you, then a lot of it must be even better. But when it comes to rosemary and memory, well, the science tells a much, much more interesting story. Okay, check out this chart. This is where it gets really wild. This first bar here shows the lowest dose, 750 milligrams. And get this, it produced a statistically significant improvement in memory speed compared to the placebo. But now, look all the way over here at the highest dose. It did the exact opposite. It actually impaired their memory speed. How crazy is that?
So the main takeaway is right here, in the researchers' own words. They found a crystal clear dose-specific effect. A little bit was good for memory speed, but a whole lot was actually bad for it. This is a perfect example of what's called a biphasic dose response, or what we can just call the Goldilocks effect. It has to be just right.
So what does this mean for us? Well, the implication is pretty fascinating. A little sprinkle of rosemary on your dinner might actually give you a small cognitive boost. But chugging a super concentrated rosemary supplement, that could totally backfire. It really seems that when it comes to rosemary, less is truly more.
Okay, so that just opens up a whole new can of worms, doesn't it? Why does it work this way? What's the biology behind all this? To figure that out, we have to look at a totally different kind of study, one that takes us from the brain all the way down to the gut. Yeah, that's right. To really get a handle on the biology, scientists often use animal models. And in this case, a 2022 study on chickens gave us some huge clues. By looking at how rosemary affected their digestive systems, researchers could start to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
The key player here is something called the gut microbiota. Now, you've probably heard of this. It's that massive community of trillions of bacteria and other little microbes living in your gut. And what we're learning is that this internal ecosystem is unbelievably important. It influences everything from your immune system to your metabolism and, yeah, even your brain through something called the gut-brain axis.
So back to the chickens. When researchers added rosemary extract to their feed, it caused this huge shift in their gut bacteria. Specifically, it knocked down the numbers of certain potentially harmful bacteria, like the group that includes E. coli. And this wasn't just a random change. It was directly linked to them being healthier overall.
And this slide just illustrates that connection perfectly. The study found that when the bad bacteria were more abundant, it was linked to negative things like higher cholesterol and more oxidative stress. But on the flip side, when rosemary helped reduce those bad guys, the chickens showed better antioxidant capacity and stronger immune systems. It's all connected.
So here's the working theory. Rosemary seems to act kind of like a prebiotic. It helps the good bacteria in your gut flourish. When your gut is healthier, you have less inflammation and oxidative stress all over your body. And because of that gut-brain axis, a calmer, healthier body leads to a healthier, better functioning brain. It all starts in the gut.
All right, let's pull all these threads together. What started as just some ancient folklore has taken us on this wild ride through cognitive science and gut microbiology, and it all comes back to that simple, humble herb probably sitting in your kitchen right now. So let's just do a quick recap of this whole journey. First, rosemary's reputation as a memory herb, it's not just a myth, there's real science there. But second, and this is crucial, the dose is key. A little bit can help, but a lot can actually hurt. And finally, one of the big reasons why seems to be its powerful effect on our gut health, which we now know is directly wired to our brain.
You know, the story of rosemary is just this perfect reminder that the natural world is full of incredibly complex chemistry. It shows us that sometimes that ancient wisdom can point modern science in exactly the right direction. And it really proves that when it comes to nature's remedies, balance is everything.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? As we keep unlocking the science behind the things we eat every day, what other incredible secrets are hiding out there, right in plain sight in our own kitchens? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.